I greet you in the name of Jesus Christ, Yeshua Messiah. It is Sunday the 7th of May, and it's just after 12 in the afternoon here in South Africa, on this third day of unleavened bread, the 17th day of the first month on the SMS Aries calendar. Just have a quick look. So this is where we're at now. What I believe to be the true calendar. We started our new year on the 21st of April, and we've just passed. We're almost at the midpoint of unleavened bread. So we're on the third day of unleavened bread. This is where I believe we're at, and what I expected to happen has not yet happened yet, and we continue. And we wait patiently, and we look forward to the coming of the Lord Jesus Christ, which could be any hour now, it could be any day or any week. I don't believe we're months away. I believe we're literally hours, days or weeks away from the great event. So that gives me an opportunity to complete this series. So we're now today we're going to do our fourth and final installment on the biblical chronology, where we're having a look at what Rev M Anstey put together in 1913 and published his book called the Romance of Bible Chronology, wherein he undertook to put together a chronology exclusively based on the Hebrew Old Testament texts. And he, with much perseverance and study and careful analysis of the scriptures, he was successfully able to put a chronology together that takes us all the way from Adam through to the time of Jesus Christ, whereby we can, with accuracy, from biblical events, biblically recorded events, to the exclusion of all other sources, we are able to determine the exact year in which the events occurred. We've now covered the 10 patriarchs before the flood, the time of the flood, including Noah up to Abraham, and the 10 patriarchs post-flood, all the way up to Joseph. We've covered the time period from Exodus and Moses. We've covered the time period of the Judges, and we're now up to the end of Judges. So if you've come to this video and you haven't seen the previous installments on this teaching, I would highly recommend that you have a look at the first three installments. This is my channel. You'll find it at Ivan S 128. If you search Ivan S 128, I'm sure that it'll come up. I'll also provide links to these videos in the description of this video. So please watch the part one. This is the part where we covered the first section up to from Adam up to Abraham. This is the section where we covered the detail of the chronology from Abraham all the way through to the Exodus, and this is the one which we covered from the birth of Moses through the 40 years in the wilderness, and then the time of the Judges. In each one of them we've seen how the Lord has provided in different styles the chronology, where the beginning period was based on the father and the son's birth and the age of the father at his son's birth, and we are able to then add up those numbers very accurately. And in some instances we've had a few bridges that we need a few gaps that we needed to find the solution to, where it wasn't totally clear. But the Bible, what we've demonstrated in these last three videos, is that the Bible always provides the information to be able to bridge those gaps, so without having to lean on external sources. So this is very exciting. This is a work that was done 110 years ago, and as I've said in my previous video, I'm absolutely astonished that the church hasn't picked up on this. this chronology, and it would certainly have dealt with all the many hours and many debates and arguments that have taken place in terms of determining when, for example, when Jesus was born, crucified, baptized and crucified. It would cover the issue of understanding Daniel's 70 weeks, which has been grossly misinterpreted by the church, and this chronology provided the means to be able to understand it more clearly. So yeah, without any further ado, I'm now going to get into this section from the end of Judges. We went up to Samuel, and we now pick up where Saul became the first king of Israel. And so let's just get back. So we're now at this section here, Saul, David, Solomon. This section is relatively straightforward. Maybe Saul is a little bit more difficult to deal with, but not too much. As Martin Anstey said, there's very little information on Saul and his chronology. His period, to be more specific. There's very little information on Saul and the duration of his reign in the Old Testament. Fortunately, Paul comes to the rescue. So we're given a text where it speaks about Saul after a year of reign, and then and he reigned 2 years. So let's just go to that. Let's just read that section of the text. Okay, so there's only one date that was given concerning his reign, and that was in 1 Samuel 13 verse 1. And if we just go and have a look at that quickly, verse 1, just switch this to, and so it says that, so it goes on to say that Saul reigned 1 year, and when he had reigned 2 years over Israel, Saul chose him 3,000 men of Israel, whereof 2,000 were with Saul. And that's the only bit of chronological information that we have on Saul. Is that, and the interpretation of this particular verse has led to substantial debate, and to some degree it has even been manipulated to some extent. I just want to cover that very briefly. Martin Anstey provided us information. He was referring here to the Revised Version, and then of course so he says the translation of the Revised Version is utterly unwarranted because they inserted some information. Okay, so and the marginal note is distinctly misleading. The Revised Version rendering, it goes as follows. It renders that Saul was, that's that same verse that we just read now in 1 Samuel 13 verse 1. It renders it that Saul was 30 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 2 years over Israel. And there was no, in the original text, there was no 30 years at all, so that was inserted. The Hebrew text says that Saul was a year old, and so there was some confusion as to what the meaning of that. Saul was a year old, and then he reigned 2 years. So clearly he wasn't a year old when he reigned 2 years. So they tried to correct this what they believed to be an error in the original Hebrew text. In the Septuagint, they actually inserted that as well. They said the whole verse is omitted in the Septuagint. So because they didn't understand, they just left the whole thing out. And later on it was brought in, and the number 30 was inserted. So this particular piece of verse has been largely manipulated, but the answer is fairly straightforward. That what happened was that if you read the text, Saul was actually anointed 3 times. he was anointed by Samuel the first time, just after he had been looking for his father's donkeys. They couldn't find them. They decided to go to Samuel to find out from him, the seer. They regarded him as a seer, to ask him where the donkeys are. In the meantime, the Lord had told Samuel that he was going to show him who the king was going to, who he was going to appoint king, seeing as the people of Israel asked for a king and he had already chosen that person. And then, so when Saul approached Samuel, the Lord said to him, "This is the man that I've picked to be king." And so Samuel anointed him at that point in time. And later on, he was anointed. So that was an initial anointing, and later on, he was anointed. So he was anointed. The first anointing was at Mizpah, and so that was after. So the initial anointing was just between him and Samuel, and then this one was the first public anointing was in Mizpah, and then 2 years later, at the commencement of his reign over all of Israel, he was anointed again in Gilgal. So what that verse was really telling us was that was covering the first year of his reign, which was not over all Israel, and then it refers to his second 2 years, or his term when he became king over Israel, over the whole of Israel for 2 years. So the total period was 3 years for that reign. And then at the end of that 2 years of reign, I'm not going to go into the scriptures now, but you can go read the story for yourself. You will see that basically Saul made himself king and priest. They were going to have there was a feast, and there was going to be sacrifices, and Samuel hadn't arrived yet, and Saul took it upon himself to actually start the process, and he did the sacrifice. So at that point in time, which had been now 3 years into Saul's reign, God rejected him as king. From that point in time, he basically became an usurper king. He became a king without authority for the remaining 37 years. Now, nowhere in the Old Testament does it tell us 37 years. All we've got is in the New Testament. We've got Saul. We've got Paul that wrote of Saul's reign in Acts 13:21. So let's just go and have a look at that. So Acts 13:21, and this is where Paul was. We've referred to this piece of text before, where Paul spoke about the 40 years of suffering in the wilderness, and then he spoke of the 450 years that God gave judges over Israel, and we spoke about how that 450 years cleared up and confirmed a number of difficulties with our understanding of the chronology during the judges. But he went on, Paul went on, and now he clears up another difficulty at the same time. He said, and afterward they desired a king. So that's after Judges. They decided a king, and God gave them Saul, the son of Kish, a man of the tribe of Benjamin, by a space of 40 years. So here Paul confirms that Saul reigned 40 years. So that's why we know that there was 3 years that we know of from the Old Testament, and then the total is 40 years according to Paul. We also have in the records, Josephus recorded in his books. He said, now Saul, when he had reigned 18 years while Samuel was alive, and after his death 22 ended his life in this manner. So Josephus confirmed also in his writings that it was 40 years. But fortunately, we don't have to go to an external source. We've got an internal source within the Bible, in the book of Acts, where Paul clears up the 40 years. So and that's how God works sometimes. He leaves things for us to go and discover right throughout. So we need both the Old Testament and the New Testament to clarify the biblical chronology. So that's dealing with so that's the time period for Saul cleared up. David's reign is very straightforward. The Bible just tells us that he reigned 40 years, so we don't have to worry too much about that. And then of course the same goes for Solomon. We're also told that he reigned 40 years. We don't have to, there's nothing too difficult to deal with. So there is maybe some difficulty with regards to that. We're given a portion of David's reign was described as 7 years and 6 months. Most chronological dates concerning the kings are dealt with in full years, and there is a difference in the counting of those years between later when Israel split into the 10 northern tribes and the 2 southern tribes under Judah, and Israel referred to as Israel and Judah throughout the Bible. Israel counted those years slightly differently to the way Judah did. We're going to deal with that issue, and it's very important to understand how the 2 different ways in which the years of the kings were accounted for. What Anstey confirmed here was that the usual chronological statements for the years of kings are reckoned quite accurately in whole years, without introducing fractions of a year. For these whole years are always calendar years from New Year's Day, 1st of Nisan, to New Year's Day. So from Nisan to Nisan is the way that they counted. Both Israel and Judah counted their king's years from Nisan to Nisan. There's been some suggestions more recently that Judah counted the kings from the 7th month, from Tishri. That is in fact not the case, and we will be able to demonstrate and prove that the counts that is not the case, and we need to concern ourselves with how the Bible describes the counting of these years, and it's proven over and over, and we're going to definitely get into that aspect of the king's counting. So Anstey goes on to say they are not measured from the day of a king's accession to the day of his death. It's measured from the beginning of the year to the beginning of the year. Okay, so that's the important thing to note. It is this was there was an exception in the chronology. There was that chronological statement that did include fractions in David's case, but that was only a part of his years. So we know that the overall, this 7.5 years, 7 years 6 months that's referred to in the Bible is part of the total 40. So we don't. That's what the 40 is what we need to concern ourselves with. That's the important thing. And so basically, what Anstey was just confirming that it doesn't become 41 years; it remains 40. And if our understanding was incorrect and we assumed it should be 41 years as to account for that half year, then this 480 years that we dealt with in the last video would have to be 481. But we know that 1 Kings 6:1 says it was 480 years from the Exodus to the 4th year of Solomon's reign, where he started building the temple, and we've covered that in great detail. So if we ascribe 41 years to David's reign, then this would have to be 481, and it's not. The Bible says 480 very clearly. Okay. So there are interlocking numbers within the Bible that help us to confirm our understanding in these dates. So we can extend the. Okay, we did cover Solomon's very briefly. The time of Solomon's reign in Jerusalem over all Israel was 40 years. Very straightforward. 2 places: 2 Kings 11:42. 1 Kings 11:42 and 2 Chronicles 9:30. Okay. So that's yeah. This was I put this in green, and I did share this on the forum. When I was reading this was a very interesting collection of information that I just came across. It's a little bit outside of the subject of this video, but I think it's well worth just looking at it very briefly. because we learn from the reign of Solomon. We know that Solomon is a type of Jesus in some ways. I mean, we've got the Song of Solomon that clearly is related to the relationship between Jesus and his bride, I do believe. And so Solomon's reign, there are some indications that it may be a type. So it's very interesting that what it says in the scriptures with regards to what Solomon did concerning the building of the temple, which I believe will be a repeat, but from a spiritual perspective, the building of God's building of his temple again, the type and shadow, where Jesus will be building his temple during the time of the tribulation, which is 14 years, 13 years to his coming, and him cleaning up in the final year. So if anybody's watching this and they don't understand what I'm talking about, you really need to go and have a look at the introductory videos presented by Alan of Ministry Revealed, and to get an understanding of the tribulation being 14 years and the biblical evidence in that regard. So there will be links in my description at the bottom of the video where you can go and find that information to get an understanding. It's definitely out of the scope of this video to cover that detail. So, but those that have that understanding and understand what we've been looking at concerning the coming 14 years tribulation will understand these words and understand these numbers that are thrown at us. And I'll just read it. It says, in the 4th year of Solomon's reign, in the month of, which is the 2nd month, so in the 2nd month he began to build the house of the Lord. In 1 Kings 6:1 and in 2 Chronicles 3:2 it says, in the 2nd day of the 2nd month of the 4th year of his reign. So we've got it's just in the 2nd month, but later we're given more information in 2 Chronicles 3:2 that in the 2nd day of the 2nd month of his 4th year of reign, he did what? And he started building the temple. Okay, so in the 11th year, in the month of Bul, which is the 8th month, the house was finished throughout, and he was 7 years in building it. So there's a lot of, we know that in the 11th year of the tribulation is when the temple is complete, both the physical temple that will be rebuilt and what may be the spiritual temple as well. So 10.5 years, that's in the 11th year, we see a completion of the temple. And then goes on to say that in the 11th year he commenced to build his house, and so he built his house, and with this he was occupied 13 years until the 20th year of his reign. So all these numbers, the 11, the 13, the 20, are all very meaningful numbers to us in understanding of the timeline that's to come. And I just find it very interesting that it highlights the 2nd day of the 2nd month, which is something that we need to maybe just watch for. I believe that in our what I believe to be the true calendar, that will be the 21st of May. So definitely we're watching for events to unfold in this time period, and if not, well, then maybe it'll be a little bit later. But as for me, I think that this may well be a date in which the 40 days of Son of Man would begin, the 40 days warning. Again, anybody who's watching this video and doesn't know what I'm talking about, if you don't understand what I'm talking about, the 40 days of the Son of Man, you really need to go and watch those introductory videos of Ministry Revealed to get that understanding. Okay, so that was a little bit of an insertion that I just discovered while I was busy preparing for this video. Alright, so let's just conclude on the Saul, David, Solomon section with this statement that it's from Anstey. He said he noted that it was a remarkable fact that each of the first 3 kings of Israel, Saul, David and Solomon, were said to have reigned exactly 40 years, and it has been used to cast some doubt upon the accuracy of the record. In other words, why so exact that each one would be 40 years in succession, 3 of them in a row. And these figures being used, as it is said, as a round numbers and signifying nothing more than a rough approximation of the lifetime of one generation. So some people argue that these numbers are not the actual numbers of their reign, but more symbolic. I agree with Anstey that is not the case, that they are in fact the actual numbers of the duration of their reign, and we can use them very accurately for the development of the biblical chronology. So at this point we've now come to the point where we just very briefly, he covers how many times the 20, 40 and 80 years are used throughout that period. We had the 40 years in the wilderness. We have all these judges that had most of them were 40 years, some of them were 20 and 80. So these numbers come up very, very regularly throughout the Bible, and so I don't think we need to be concerned ourselves. It just goes to show that the situation is fully in the control of the Lord. So the chronology at this point, where we ended up on the last video at 3023, which was the end of when the end of the time of Samuel. Saul picks up, and we can add his reign, the 40. We can add the reign of the 40 years for David, and we can add the 40 years for Solomon. So we've just added another 120 years, and we now come to the point where Rehoboam and Jeroboam begin to reign, and at the time when Israel is split into two, the 10 northern tribes and the 2 southern tribes. And that's the point at which now this section of the chronology is particularly difficult. And I'll just read some of the comments that was made by Anstey concerning this section. He said, "We now reach to the crux of the chronology of the Old Testament, the period of the kings of Judah and Israel, referred to as the Freudian knot of sacred chronology by Hayes. Hayes referred to it as the Freudian knot of sacred chronology." I didn't know what a Freudian knot was at the time, so I just want to share that with you. I looked it up, and so we can go and the Freudian knot, apparently, according to Wikipedia, is so a serious knot, if you want, and it's a bit of a Greek legend, whereby the cutting of the Freudian knot is a ancient Greek legend associated with Alexander the Great, whereby he was given in 333, according to the legend, Alexander was challenged to untie the knot, and apparently he took his sword to it and just chopped it up. So he untied the knot in a different way. What Anstey and Hayes is saying is that the same is being done to this chronological knot. There's a Freudian as we get through. There'll be a section of the chronology or the time of the kings, which becomes so difficult and such a knot to untie that people have taken to it with a knife, basically, and they've really butchered that section of the chronology to the point where it's just becomes meaningless, and as opposed to just painstakingly untying it and getting to a clear understanding of the chronology of that time period. So we will get to that section, and I will show it, and I'll refer to it so that you will know exactly what I'm talking about here. But so this is just telling you what's coming up, and so he goes on to say, as was expected, we here meet with an unusually large number of tents to cut the Freudian knot by means of so-called emendations, corrections, rejections of the text by lame chronologists. He didn't mince his words, who all in one conclude that if they cannot make the figures agree, it is not their interpretation of the figures but the text which is at fault. So just highlighting and criticizing some of the methodology that previous and even modern day chronologists take to concerning the text. And he goes on to say, and yet there is not a single difficulty that has been raised which is not capable of a simple and easy solution without doing violence to the text. There is not a single difficulty that has not been satisfactorily cleared up in the standard works by able chronologists of the Chronos of the Old Testament. And he makes reference to John Lightfoot in the 17th century and Willis J. Beecher's in his book dated Events of the Old Testament, and the scholarly work of the author of the companion Bible. These guys managed to do so without doing violence to the text. So in casting up the times of the collateral kingdoms, says Dr. Lightfoot, our only way is to lay them in two columns, one justly paralleling the other, and run them both by years as the text directs you. So this is basically describing the only way to deal with this section of the chronology in the Bible is to lay up two columns, and that's exactly what we're going to do. And then he goes on to say, but there is nicety indeed, not to see how strangely they were reckoned, sometimes inclusive and sometimes otherwise. For this you will easily find, but to find a reason why they be so reckoned. So we don't know why the Lord did it this way. He chose to do it this way, but it's actually very rewarding to be able to see it and to be able to unravel it in this way. He goes on to say that Rehoboam's years are counted complete, Abijam's are concurrent, and whereas it is said in Jeroboam he reigned 22 years and his son Nadab 2 years, you will find that by this reckoning that Nabab's years fall within the sum of his father's 20 years. He just gives an example, father's 22 years. So he just gives an example of some of the unraveling, that some of the king's reigns are within another king's reigns in terms of the period. This may seem strange, but the solution is sweet and easy from 2 Chronicles 13:20. The Lord smote Jerome with some ill disease that he could not, so that he could not administer or rule the kingdom, so that he was forced to substitute Nadab in his lifetime. And in one and the other same year, both his father and his son died. So he just touched very briefly on one of the problems that had to be dealt with during this period. Okay, and then this next section, and I'm just going to read it because the way that the Israelites, the tribes of Israel, the 10 northern tribes counted their years compared to the way Judah counted their years, and these difficulties result, if you just take the years that are given, the duration of the reigns of the kings as they are given in the Bible, without clearly understanding and unraveling the meaning of those years and how they overlap, because they do to some degree, and sometimes they double accounted, but the Bible always provides a means of being able to sort out those problems and being able to unravel the truth behind it. But if you just take the numbers and you use them without careful study and without careful analysis, you end up with this situation, or these, and he gives some examples here of the type of things that you will come up with, the type of difficulties that you will come with, and as a result, some people just throw up their hands in there and say, well, this, the Old Testament it's messed up, it's been corrupted. We can't rely on those years. So he goes on to say, diverse such passages as these you will find in the story of kings. Now, this is the time. Now he gives examples. Ahaziah, 2 years older than his father, in 2 Chronicles 22. Baasha fighting 9 years after he is dead. Jotham reigning 4 years after he was buried. Joram crowned king in the 17th year of Jehoshaphat, and in the 22nd year and again in the 22nd year of Jehoshaphat, and again after Jehoshaphat's death. So Jehoshaphat was his father. So these are the kind of things that come up, and then for resolution of some ambiguities, when you have found them, the text will do it if it be well searched. This way, attain to you will guide you in making those things seem to be contradictions in the text or slips of the Holy Ghost, in which always is admirable wisdom. So with careful search you're able to sort out these problems. Admirable it is to see how the Holy Spirit of God in discords has showed the sweet music, but few mark this, because few take the right course in reading the scripture. Hence, when men are brought to see flat contradictions as unreconciled, there be many in it. They are at amaze and ready to deny the Bible. A little pains right spent will soon amend this wavering and settle men upon the rock whereon to be built is to be sure. Okay, so he's just really stating how important it is to really just be patient, get into the word and search out the text, and you will come to the solutions to unscramble the difficulties, and not be ready to slice out pieces of the text and or alter it, as many have done. Alright, so then he goes on to say that the key to solution of all these difficulties is given by Willis J. Beecher in an article on Kings of Israel and Judah in the American Presbyterian Review of April 1880. He goes on to say, in recording the dates, he says, these narratives follow a simple and consistent system. The following rules are obeyed with entire uniformity in all the dates of the period under consideration. Okay. And then he lists the 4 rules. The first rule is that all years mentioned are current years of a consecutive system. The first year of a king is not a year's time beginning with the month and day of his accession, but a year's time beginning 1, the preceding, or 2, the following New Year's Day, being Nisan, the new moon before Passover, in other words Nisan 1. So all years are counted from Nisan 1. Sometimes from the preceding year of his accession, and sometimes from the year after his accession. And that's where we need to understand what is done between the two. The second rule is when a reign closes and another begins during a year, that year is counted to the previous reign. In other words, when a son takes over from a father who is king midway through the year, that year is ascribed to the father and not to the son. That's the Judahite way. That's the way Judah did it. Okay. Regularly, as in the case of earlier kings of Israel, and occasionally in other cases, there were one instance in Judah's case, but all the others were fairly consistent. But Israel seemed to be consistent in that year, the broken year, is counted to the following reign as well as the previous reign. In other words, when a son took over from his father mid-year, that year was counted towards the total number of years of the reign of the father, and it was counted to the total number of years of the reign of the son. That was the Israelite mode of counting. Okay, so then this last rule is a little bit more difficult to decipher. It says when we use the ordinal numbers first, second and third, which date the beginning or end of a reign, to check the cardinal numbers 1, 2, 3, etc., which denote its generation, we must count both sets as designating complete calendar years. That is, we must count the date given in the ordinal as being either the opening or the close of the year designated by the ordinal. Otherwise, the units represented by the 2 sets of numbers are of different sorts and cannot be numerically compared. In other words, the number of years of Israel king is given as 10, and the number of years for a Judah king is given as 10. They're not necessarily the same actual number of years. In the Israel case, it would be actually 9 because there was double accounting usually, and in the case of Judah, it was, you could consider the number 10 as being the duration. All right. I think the best way to demonstrate these things is when we get into the table. As Anstey pointed out, the only way to really deal with this is to follow it graphically side by side in a table form. I think we're going to get to that point now. So that's the tables. Okay, he goes on to say this is where table. All right, just a quick description of the table that we're going to look at now. He says the table is basically comprised of 3 parts. Okay, and I'm not going to read this. I'm going to go and show you what the table looks like. So I could use the original table in Anstey's volume 2, but it's very difficult to read. So as I've said in the previous video, I've extracted the tables that Anstey created and I've brought them into Excel. So this is my Excel spreadsheet, and the table has been broken up into sections. So and I've added additional columns, but the information contained in this Excel spreadsheet is the same data that was in Anstey's original table. So here we've got a table for the first 2,553 years, and then on a separate column we pick up from there, and we continue with the table. This is now up to the end of Saul, David, and Solomon. So this is the table that we got up to end. And then on another sheet we've got with the David table continues, and this is where we're going to pick up now. But I'll just show you. We've got tables now for the kings of Judah and Israel, and that will continue right to the end of almost to the end of Kings of Judah. So here's the end of Kings of Judah. So I'm just flit here. I just want to give you the structure of this thing, and this is and then it continues onwards through to the time where we're at now. So it's all in table form, given in columns, and so what I've done is I've just brought in the Excel. It's much easier to read, and I could manipulate, well, not manipulate the data, but I could mark it up and make it a little bit easier to understand. Okay, so we're going to pick up from the end of Solomon's 40 years, and we're going to pick up on this table, which is now after Solomon. We've got the two kingdoms, the kingdom of Judah and the kingdom of Israel, in a column, each in the kings, their respective kings, going down in a column side by side. And this is the only way to be able to determine or to understand the chronology. In the book, what Anstey basically does is he gives a full description. I'm going to just scroll through that. Here's the first period. Okay, let me just show you the periods. The 3 sections. I didn't cover that. So the 3 sections are. He says, okay. So in the table, the first section from because the split came immediately after Solomon. Because immediately after Solomon we had the split, and Israel and Judah had their respective kings. And the first section goes down to covers up to the period at the end of Jehoram and the end of Ahaziah, where they both end simultaneously. So the end of Jehoram ends together. They are in sync at this point in time. So the two, we have a new beginning for both sides, both Israel and Judah, where Jehu comes in, and so this first section is considered as the first section of the table. Then it starts with the second section, and it goes the 2 kings running together up until the end of Kings of Israel. This is where Israel's kings come to an end. Judah's kings continue, and it's important to note, and the Bible gives us this information we're able to synchronize. So we know that the Bible clearly says that in the 6th year of Hezekiah was the 9th year of Hosea, and that was the end and that was his last year. So we've got synchronization between the two. So that's the second section, and then this third section covers the remaining period where Judah continued with its kings up to the end, and it jumps across now to another tab, and it goes up to the end of Zedekiah was the last king, and that's the end of kings of Judah in Zedekiah's 11th year was the end of it. So that's the third section of the time of kings of Judah and Israel. So we're going to deal with the first section to in some detail, because so what in the book now what Anstey's done is described this section, the first period, the second period he describes, and then of course there's the third period as well. Okay, I'm not going to go there now. So that's basically what he was describing here in the three periods. Just before we get into the detail, what I'm saying is, for me to read the description of each of those three sections of the table will take a couple of hours, and you're not going to follow it. So I'm going to do it a little bit differently. I'm going to go to the actual table, and I've made notes within the table. So we'll go down the column and try and do it in a more graphical way, so that what I'd like to achieve in this video is that you get to see exactly how the Lord put it together, and how we were able to unravel it. So, and I will not be able to go through the entire thing, but it'll give you a very good idea of what we're dealing with, and I'll cover some of the more important sections within those lists, within that table. Alright, so I just want to see, I think I highlighted some sections here within the book that I thought that was important. Let's just read through this before I continue. It says, the reigns of the kings of the first two periods are so locked and interlocked that it is impossible for any error to have crept into the chronology between the year of the disruption and the year of the fall of Samaria. So because they're so interlocked, because the two, even though it's so difficult to unravel, because they're so interlocked, it's impossible to make an error, because there are points where you can double check yourself. Sometimes you have to make an assumption, and you're not sure if you made the correct assumption in terms of allocating the number of years or the beginning of a particular year's kingdom. But somewhere there's a point where we get to check ourselves, and where there's no doubt. So they're completely interlocked. What we're actually saying is that this period of the kings of Judah and Israel is kind of like a double step ladder, and I pulled up a picture. It's kind of like a rope ladder that are interlocked with one another. So as you're always given a foothold. So you're given a foothold on the one side, which gives you an opportunity to find a foothold on the other side, which might be 1 or 2 or 3 rungs higher. But once you've got that foothold, you're then able to find another foothold on the other side, which might be 1 or 2 or 3 rungs or more on the other side. But you're always able to, while you've got a foothold, you can find a foothold on the other side. And while you've got a foothold on that side, you can find a foothold on the other side. So it's very much like a ladder in that way. If I can give you a graphical representation of what we're dealing with. Let's just go and see what Anstey has to say on this. He goes on to say that the accuracy of the chronology of the kingdom of Judah from the fall of Samaria to this is now after that section where, so you've got double going along, and then all of a sudden you've got one. But the accuracy is so clear from the fall of Samaria to the captivity. That's the beginning of the 7 years. It is likewise guaranteed, being checked by the long numbers which measure the intervals between two distant events. Example, the period of the 13th year of Josiah when the ministry of Jeremiah began to the 4th year of Jehoiakim is stated as being a period of 23 years. So in another book where Jeremiah states, he gives a period of 23 years, and he gives the beginning of that 23 years as the 13th year of Josiah, and the end of that 23 years as the 4th year of Joachim. We can go and double check ourselves by these means. We've got given these long bridges or long links that cover a period that confirm whether we've counted the years correctly. All right. He goes on to say that the synchronym contained in Jeremiah 5:1, that's the one he's mentioned in this section here, is the most important date in the Bible. It connects all previous dates of the sacred chronology down to the 4th year of Jehoiakim, with all the dates of the profane chronology that can be connected with the first year of Nebuchadnezzar. So in that statement, he also connects when Nebuchadnezzar came to rule, which was now a pagan king, but we are now able to bring pagan or profane chronology or chronology outside of the Bible. We can actually synchronize it with the biblical chronology because of this one statement. And then it goes on to say, for these 2 years are here identified, and to know any one date in a complete system of chronology is to know every date connected with it. It goes on to say that scripture chronology deals only with integral years. It reckons a broken year sometimes as one whole year, which it gives to the outgoing king, and sometimes 2 whole years, which it gives one to the outgoing king and one to the incoming king, the year being thus reckoned twice over. It follows from this fact that the chronological period, the chronology of the period cannot be ascertained by the applying of the process of simple addition of the figures denoted to the length of the reigns of the various kings. So he's just saying, confirming there, you can't just go and add the duration of the kings together to come up with a chronology. It's impossible. You will come up with a situation where the total, and he gives an example here, that for the first period, you remember we broke up the table into 3, and he called the first period. So if you go and add up all the years of the kings that are in that period, you'll come to a total of for Israel is 98 years, and for Judah well, let's just read this whole thing. In the first period, the sum of the reigns of the 6 kings of Judah, from Rehoboam to Ahaziah of Judah, is 95 years. And the sum of the reigns of the 9 kings of Israel, from Jeroboam to Jehoram of Israel, is 98 years. But the true chronological period for the period, the true number of years for the chronology of that period is 90 years. Okay, so the explanation of the figures 95 and 98 lies in the fact that in them some years have been reckoned twice over. So he's just really just confirming you can't do it. The only way to do it is as we're about to do, as I'm about to demonstrate now. I think. Okay, so he goes on to say, we now proceed to consider the case of each reign in detail. The figures cannot be treated mechanically. They can only be interpreted and understood in the light of the accompanying narrative. What he's saying is, the best way to do this thing is to have the column, have the table open, and to read this section. And he goes in, and it's quite lengthy. That's the first section, and it's quite long. I think it's about 20 pages long to get to the second section and that. So I'm going to do it a little bit differently. I'm going to go to the actual table and just work through it step by step. So follow me on this one. Okay, we're going to start. All right, so we know that for both kings started simultaneously. Rehoboam and Jeroboam started simultaneously together, and so for the beginning section that their reigns run in parallel. And so let's read the comments. These are the sections of the text that are related to each of them. Here we read in 1 Kings 14 verse 21, it says, and Rehoboam the son of Solomon reigned in Judah Rehoboam was 41 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 17 years in Jerusalem. Okay, so there's his 17 years. For Jeroboam, it says in 1 Kings 14:20, it says, and the days which Jeroboam reigned were 2 and 20 years. So he reigned 22 years. There's his 22 years. Okay, so the color of I've colored the columns according to the length, and there are slight variations in the shade, and just to help, it just helps to see it visually. So we've got the 22 years for Jeroboam and the 17 years for Rehoboam. Okay. Now, while Jeroboam is still reigning, at the end of the 70 years, we've got Abijam that comes in, and this text says, now in the 18th year of the king Jeroboam, the son of Nebat reigned Abijam over Judah. So remember Abijah. So he comes now in the 18th year. So there we've got a link. His reign begins 18th year, in the 18th year, and then it goes on to say that 3 years he reigned in Jerusalem. Okay, so he reigned 3 years. That's this section here, this block here. Okay, but then when we read a little bit further in 1 Kings 15, 9 to 10, we see that in verse 9, and in the 20th year of the reign of Jeroboam, king of Israel, so in the 20th year of Jeroboam, reigned Asa over Judah. So Asa began to reign in the 20th year of Jeroboam. So but you see now, Abijam's still in his third year, and it says that Asa started to reign in Israel, and he reigned 41 years, and he reigned 41. So Asa reigned 41 years. So there we've got 41. The problem now is, where do we start the count of Asa's 41 years? Do we start it here when Abijam is still clearly in his third year, or do we start after? And this is where Judah are very they were absolutely consistent in the application of the counts of their years. That the accession year of the son, this is the accession year of Asa, is not counted towards him. You see, his first year is counted after his accession year. So from the beginning of the following year is his year 1, and the part year is ascribed to the outgoing king. So the outgoing king gets that year. So that's why Abijam is considered to have reigned 3 years, and Asa's 41 years starts after the 3 years of Abijam. So we disregard that portion of the year for Asa, and his 41 years starts. And that was the method that Judah used. Okay, we'll see that Israel used a slightly different method. Okay, so yeah, then we get to a section where then we've got here in 1 Kings 15:25, and Nadab the son of Jeroboam began to reign over Israel in the 2nd year of Asa. So there's Asa's 2nd year, and he began to reign in that year. But we see here that it's still within the 22nd year of Jeroboam was also in line with the 2nd year of Asa. So this was again when Nadab, this was his accession year, and in Israel's reckon, and then it goes on to say that he reigned over Israel 2 years. Okay, so there's his 2 years for Nadab. But what happened here was then we've got according to, okay, I'm just going to scroll up a little bit so you can get that full comment in. Okay, so then we see so reading on. I'm just going to go into edit mode so that I can just point to this thing. Okay. So we've read this section that in the 2nd year of Asa he reigned 2 years. Let's just highlight that in bold. So that's the section we've just covered. And okay, it goes on to say he did evil, and then but later on in 1 Kings 15:28 we see that even in the 3rd year of Asa, king of Judah, did Baasha slay him and he reigned in his stead. So in the 3rd year of Asa, so there, Baasa slain Nadab, and he began to reign. So this was Baasa's accession year. So Nadab had a part of a year there and a part of the year, and yet he's ascribed 2 years. So those 2 parts wouldn't make up 2 years, but if you had to consider the 2 years, you would run into trouble because it's overstated. But that's the way they counted. Nadab came in; he got the full year accounted to him for his accession year, but his father also got the full year accounted to him as in the 22. So we've got it. This is a situation where we've got double accounting, and then we've got the same thing again. Nadab is killed somewhere during the following year, and Bashan gets the full year accounted to him for his reign, but Nadab also gets that year accounted to him. So there's a double situation, back to back, where we've got double accounting of years. Okay, so without having done this, but the key here is our anchor is the 2nd and 3rd year of Asa is our anchor. So that's the only way we would be able to unravel this situation, is because they are keyed in with our anchor to the 2nd and 3rd year of Asa for that whole event. And that's just one example of many instances that we've had to unravel. Right, so Basan, and we're told that in the text, I think we're told how long his reign is as well. Going down here, at the bottom there. In the 3rd year of, right at the bottom of the comment, 1 Kings 15:33. In the 3rd year of Asa, king of Judah, began Baasa, the son of Ahaziah, to reign. Ahijah to reign over all Israel, and he reigned 24 years. So there's his 24 years. Okay, and that obviously, that entire 24 was during the total 40 years of Asa. So we still got an anchor point on the Judah side, and then we get to the next thing in 1 Kings 16:8. We read there that in the 26th year of Asa, king of Judah, began Elah, the son of Baasha, to reign. So he comes in, and that's his accession year in the 26th year. So in the 26th year, Elah comes in, and that's his accession year, which is also the 24th year, we know, of his father Baasha. So another instance where, and then we're told that he reigned over Israel 2 years. So Elah reigned 2 years. Okay, so he reigned a part of that year, and during this year, let's just go on. There's a whole lot of changes that happen in close succession here. We read here in 1 Kings 16:10 that Zimri went in and smote him and killed him, and in the 27th year of Asa. So in the 27th year, let me just go back to put it in edit mode so I can just move my cursor around. Okay, so we read here that in the 27th year of Asa, this 27th year, he began to reign. That's Zimri. So he killed him. So, and then we read here that in the 27th year of Asa, king of Judah, did Zimri reign 7 days. So he was in the seat for 7 days, and what happened to him? So Timri and Omri came and ousted Zimri 7 days after he had been in the seat, and so they co-reigned. Omri and Tibni. So it goes on to say here in 1 Kings 16:21, when then were the people of Israel divided in 2 parts. Half of the people followed Tibni and the son of Ginath to make him king, and the other half followed Omri. And so that all happened in the same year. So all of this happened in that year, which was the 27th year of Asa. Okay. So again, now we're told that Elah reigned 2 years, but in fact it was a part year there and a part year there. And we know that then Zimri reigned 1 year, and meantime it was like, well, okay, we're told straight out that he reigned 7 days. Okay, so then we can go on to the next comment that we can pick up. It says here, 1 Kings 16:22 to 23, says, but the people that followed Omri prevailed against the people that followed Tibni, and so Tibni died, and Omri reigned. So that, and it goes on to say that 31st year of Asa, king of Judah, began Omri to reign over Israel. 12 years, of which 6 years he reigned in Tiras. So he reigned a total of 12 years, but half in one place and half in the other place. So that happened in the 31st year. So in the 31st year of Asa, he began to reign on his own. So that's the end of the dual reigning, and he now reigns on his own for a total of 12 years. So you've got to count from where he came in 1 all the way to 12 years. Okay, and then we pick up, and you remember we've still got our anchor. We've still got Asa. Asa is our anchor for all of these things. So even if we get all of this muddled up, we've got these comments that link it in all the time. So yeah, we've got linked into the 31st year, and then we've got Ahab that comes in, and it says in 1 Kings 16:29, in the 38th year of Asa, king of Judah, began Ahab the son of Omri to reign over Israel. And Ahab the son of Omri reigned over Israel 22 years. So we've got a clear link to the 38. We know exactly when Ahab, and this was his accession year in their counting, which would have been in the 12th year. So again, double counting, but we need to start his first year parallel with the 12th year of the previous king. So and all along we've had a clear anchor point. So we've always hanging on to the one side, and then so now we'll find that the anchor now moves from Judah's side to Israel's side, because when we pick up on this comment, we now see that that Asa slept with his fathers and died in the 41st year of his reign. So he died in the 41st of his reign, and Jehoshaphat the son of Asa began to reign over Judah in the 4th year of Ahab, king of Israel. So in the 4th year, Jehoshaphat began to reign. So you can see now the anchor point has moved to the Israel side, and we've now got a clear, we know that we cannot make an error in this thing. And Jehoshaphat was 30 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 25 years in Jerusalem. So Jehoshaphat reigned. So again, now in the Judah way of reckoning, the 41st year gets accounted to the father. Even though he started reigning in this year, it isn't counted towards his total of 25 years. His first year in the count starts the year thereafter. So as opposed to where Israel we start the first year parallel with the last year, and this one is sequential. Okay, so it's totally sequential, and he gets 25 years, and it goes all the way down to there. And a lot of things happen during his lifetime. So just bear with me. We're going to work to the end of this table, and then I trust that you're still following with me. Okay, so his reign continues, and then we've got the anchor still on this side, and we can pick up on the next piece of information in the Bible. It says that in 1 Kings 22:51, it says Ahaziah the son of Ahab began to reign over Israel and Samaria the 17th year of Jehoshaphat king of Judah, and he reigned 2 years. So yeah, we've got Ahab reigning, and then Ahaziah coming in the 17th year of Jehoshaphat. So 17th year of Jehoshaphat. Just this Jehoram is his son. Okay, so what happened here was that when you go read the Bible, you'll find that Ahab and Jehoshaphat actually went to war together, and they were fighting the enemy collectively. And in their absence, the son of Jehoshaphat, Jehoram, stood in his, he was reigning in his stead while his father was at war. And the same thing happened here. Ahaziah came and stood in. He's the son of Ahab. He stood in for his father while his father was at war. And that's why these two happen together. And this is the point where we get to that Gordian knot that I mentioned. Because what we've got here, and when you read the text, it is extremely difficult to separate these two, because we've got a situation where Jehoshaphat has a son called Jehoram, but later on we also read that Ahab has a son called Jehoram. So we've got a Jehoram on both the Judah side and the Israel side, and Ahab has a son called Ahaziah, but later on we have Jehoram has a son called Ahaziah. So we have a Jehoram on both sides of the lines, and we have Ahaziah on both sides of the line. And the text doesn't tell you that it's when it's referring to Jehoram, that it's referring to Jehoram of Judah or Jehoram of Israel. You have to figure that out, and that's and so you've got this interlinking situation between the two, and there's all at the same period. And to add to injury, Jehoram, the son of Jehoshaphat, comes to start to rule, and then his rule stops, and then he starts to rule again, and then only after a while he rules on his own after his father dies. So he gets 3 starts. He begins to rule, and he begins to rule in the Bible, and that created quite a bit of confusion. If you don't do this in graphical form, in table form, you get completely knotted up in the whole equation. And to add to injury, what we've also got here, this was an extremely evil time of the year. We've got Ahab. His wife was Jezebel, and we know how wicked she was. And Jehoram, the son of Jehoshaphat, he married Jezebel's daughter, Athaliah. So we've got a daughter of Jezebel now on this side being the wife of Jehoram, and she corrupted Jehoram to the point where he became an extremely evil king on the Judah side as well. So and then their son Ahaziah, that's the son now of Jehoram of Judah, together with Athaliah, Jezebel's daughter. They had a son, so later on called Ahaziah. And so what we have here is we have a time where a really wicked king, the husband of Athaliah, the daughter of Jezebel, is reigning at the same time that Jehoram, the son of Jezebel and Ahab. So Ahab and Jezebel have a son also. So we have the evil on both sides simultaneously going through. And later on we'll see how this unravels. Jehu comes and sorts out a whole lot of things. So let's just work through those comments and see if we can follow. We've covered the first one. We saw that in the 17th year of Jehoshaphat, that Ahaziah, now the son of Ahab, comes to reign, and he reigns 2 years. And his father's not dead yet. His father's fighting a war. So he begins to reign, and we've got the same situation here. Although no comment, we have no information on this side to actually bring this in. It's actually in the next comment that we pick up here. So that was in 1 Kings 22:51, but in here in 2 Kings 1:17, let me just shift that up a bit. 2 Kings 1:17, we read, so he, that's referring to Ahaziah, died according to the word of the Lord which Elijah had spoken. So what happened was, Ahaziah had just started reigning, and he fell through the roof and he died. So, and then Jehoram, his brother, came and reigned in his stead. Now this is the Jehoram of Israel, not the Jehoram of Judah, obviously. He came and reigned in the 2nd year of Jehoram, the son of Jehoshaphat. So this is the first time that we get to hear that Jehoram, the son of Jehoshaphat, was actually reigning
we had no mention of this, and it's his second year nochal, so we weren't even told that he came into the picture. So if this is his second year, and we know that happened in the 18th year of Jehoshaphat. Remember, the 18th year of Jehoshaphat, and so we're told that this was the second year of his son Jehoram reigning, and was also now the beginning of Jehoram, on the Israel side, the son of Ahab. He also began to reign because his brother had died. So this is part of the untying of the Gordian knot, so to speak. So now we finally learned that Jehoram was actually also standing in for his father, and it was as a result of this comment here that in his second year, the son of Jehoram, the son of Jehoshaphat, was in his second year. And then so Jehoram is now, the two Jehorams are now in the chair, and while their fathers are fighting, it is in this first year of Jehoram that his father is now killed. Ahab is killed in the first year of Jehoram, having taken over from his brother, and so he now that's the end of the 22 years of Ahab, in the same year that Jehoram takes the chair, which was also the end of his brother's life, Ahaz. So all those, his brother and the father died in the same year that Jehoram began to take the seat. So it's quite a knot. And then the next one we pick up here is in 1 Kings 8:16. It says, in the 5th year of Jehoram, and to add to injury, this is the part there, that in the same text, the names are spelled differently. In some instances, let me just put this into edit mode again, so I can move my cursor. Okay, so I just moved that apart there. So here we have in the 5th year of Joram, which is spelled differently from Jehoram, but it's the same person referred to. So here we have Jehoram, the son of Ahab, but it's spelled differently, of the king of Israel. Jehoshaphat, king of Judah. Jehoshaphat being the king of Judah. Jehoram, the son of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, began to reign. So what we've got here, so we've learned that all along Jehoshaphat is still king, but now his son begins to reign again. So and yet we are told there he was in his second year there, and now he begins to reign again. So obviously it came to an end. His father was back from the war, and he's reigning in his own seat, and then all of a sudden his son now comes in again, and he's a session year again for the second time, and that happens in the in the 5th year of Jehoram. So in the 5th year of Jehoram, the son of Ahab, the king of Israel, Jehoram, the son of Jehoshaphat, begins to reign. Okay, so that's, sorry, let me go back into edit mode again. Okay. So, and then it goes on to say that in the next verse it says 32 years old was he when he began to reign, and he reigned 8 years. So that's Jehoram, the son of Jehoshaphat, reigned for 8 years. So again, according to this is the first instance where on the Judah side, the first year of the incoming king is accounted to him, as well as the year being accounted to his father. And it's probably because his father was still alive during this time, for another for at least, well, for that part of that year, and then plus another 3 years his father was alive when he began to reign. Okay, so then we go on to here, and then the next comment we pick up is that, and Jehoshaphat slept with his father. So this is when his father died, and was buried with his fathers in the city of David, and Joram his son reigned in his stead. We don't have a means of picking up exactly when that happened, except for the comment that he reigned 25 years. So this must have happened in this year. Remember, the full 25 is ascribed to the outgoing father. So we were told earlier that he reigned 25 years. So this is, even though this comment is not told that when he died, we know that he reigned 25 years, so we can put this comment, and it would have happened in the 4th year of his son's Jehoram co-reign with him. Okay. Then he's on his own. His son is on his own, and then we read that in 2 Kings 9:29 that in the 11th year of Jehoram the son of Ahab, so in the 11th year of Jehoram the son of Ahab on the Israel side, that Ahaziah began to reign. Now this is Ahaziah, the son of Jehoram, on the Judah side. The other Ahaziah, this Ahaziah fell through the roof. This is now a different Ahaziah. So he began to reign in the 11th year, and he was now co-reigning with his father, because his father reigned 8 years. So we've got 7 and 8, and he began in the 11th year. So we've got a co-reign situation again. Okay, so there's a co-reign situation, and we're now coming to the point where Jehu comes and cleans up the whole situation. So let's see what the scripture has to say on that. This I'm going to have to switch into edit mode again, so I can just okay, this is a fairly lengthy section. Okay, so what we have here is Jehoram goes to Jezreel because he was wounded. Jehu rode in a chariot and went to Jezreel. Okay, and then Ahaz, the king of Judah, so this guy here, Ahaz, the king of Judah, came down to see Jehoram, who was now in Jezreel. So now we've got Ahaziah and Jehoram and Jehu in Jezreel. Okay, and later we learn that his mom, his mother Jezebel is also there. Okay, so he goes there, and just I'm not going to read what we have. I'm just reading the highlighted sections. Then while he was there, then Jehoram, the king of Israel, and Ahaziah, king of Judah. So both these two kings, okay, this dude and Jehoram, they both ride out against. They ride out in their chariots and went out against Jehu. And Jehoram turned his hands and fled, so he flees from Jehu. Jehu pulls a bow and he shoots an arrow right in his heart, and he kills Jehoram. Now you see how Jehoram here is spelled so differently. I mean, there you have Jehoram, king of Israel, and you have Jehoram spelled differently. And I don't know why that is. It makes for a complex situation to read. Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, in the same thing, yeah, we have Jehoram turned, and then these Jehoram is smote between, and it's definitely the same person. When you go and look at, I think it's H3088 for this name Jehoram, and it's also H3088 for Joram, and it's actually recorded there that both. I suppose it's like we speak about John and Jonathan, maybe, or something like that. Where this is like an abbreviation version of the full name. So it's one and the same thing. Or Pete and Peter. It's possibly that type. And in one instance, you talk about Peter, and then they use his full name Peter in the same piece of text. So anyway, so he's now dead. Jehu kills Jehoram, the king of Israel, and then Ahaziah, the king of Judah, saw this, and he flees also, and then he's also killed in his chariot. So they're both dead on the same event. And then after killing them both, Jehu then rides to. He comes to. He was on his way to Jezreel when that happened, and he arrives there now. And Jezebel heard of it, and she paints her face, and she makes herself look pretty, sticks her head out the window, and then she makes a silly comment like, "Hey, dude, do you remember what Zimri?" She says here. She said to him, "Had Zimri peace, who slew his master. That's what she says. She said, had Zimri peace, who slew his master. And she's referring to Zimri, who killed the king, was in the seat 7 days and then he was dead. So it's like a veiled threat, you know. Remember Zimri, he was in the seat for 7 days. Yeah, well, she probably had something to do with the fact that he was killed within 7 days of him coming to power. And she's just reminding Jehu of that. And he says, okay, who's on my side? And 2 eunuchs stick up. And they say, put up their hand. And they say, I'm on your side. And he says, throw her out. And they do. And that's the end of Jezebel. So we've got the 2 kings and Jezebel all killed in a very short space of time. And so Jehu now reigns Israel. He's now killed the king, and he immediately takes over that reign of Israel. Now with Ahaziah now being killed as well, his mother Athaliah assumes the reign, and she does some very evil things. And so then Athaliah, the mother of Ahaziah, saw that her son was dead, and she arose and destroyed all the seed of the royal. So she killed off everybody, but the sister, so it's of Ahaziah. So it goes on. Let's just read it on. But Jehosheba, the daughter of the king Jehoram, that's the king Jehoram on the Judah side, and she being the sister of Ahaziah, took Joash, the son of Ahaziah. So she took her brother and she hid him, and she hides him 6 years. Okay, and he was with her, hidden in the house of 6 years. And Athaliah did reign over the land. So Athaliah reigned 6 years, and then we learn that later on, let's just get this thing up a little bit so you can read the full comment. And in 2 Kings 11:4, we see that in the 7th year, Jehoiada sent and fetched the rulers of the hundreds and the captains over the guard, and brought them to the house of Jehovah, and made a covenant with them. And then she made them promise a whole lot of things, and then she showed him the king that had been saved, the king's son, Joash. Joash had been saved, and then all the people of the land rejoiced, and the city was quiet, and they slew Athaliah. So they killed Athaliah, and then 7 years old was Jehoash, there again a different spelling, the same person, when he began to reign. So he was 7 years old when he began to reign, when his mother was slain. And in the 7th year of Jehoash began to reign. So in the 7th year of Jehoash began to reign. Okay. So this would have been, so Athaliah reigned 6 and a bit years, and Joash came in. So we got the 7th year scrubbed to, doesn't really matter. He came in after the 6th year of Athaliah, and it was in the line with the 7th year of Jehu. So he began to reign, and I think it tells us that, and he reigned 40 years. He reigned. So he reigned 40 years, going down. So we're now in the second portion of the whole table, and I'm gonna this whole process. So now you can see the anchor again transfers to Judah. So always got an anchor on the one side. So yeah, we had an anchor on Jerome's side. Then okay, they're both taken out, and Jehu comes in. Now the anchor is still on this side, and then later on we'll see that the anchor is now used in the 23rd year of Joash. He becomes the anchor, and so it goes on. And the table can be completed all the way down. There's just a mention, there are 2 gaps. There's 3 gaps in these kings. Here's the first gap where no information, this white area. Okay, that we can clearly get up to there, and then we pick up this Uzziah, who is also known as Azariah, same person. He comes to reign in the 20th and 7th year. In the 20th and 7th year of Jehoram, king of Israel. Jeroboam. This is Jeroboam the second. In the 20th, so yeah, we have another Jeroboam. Remember, we had a Jeroboam in the beginning, and now we've got another Jeroboam much later on. He's Jeroboam the second, and in 2 Kings 15:1, we see there that in the 27th year began that Azariah, son of Amaziah king, he began to reign. So there's a bit of a gap between where the last king, where Amaziah finishes, the end of his 29th, and then we got this 27th. Because of this anchor, we've got a long anchor. We've got this Jeroboam the second providing us with an anchor, and so we can deal with this. We know that it's there. There was probably a period where there was no king; it was just a governing body that was ruling. But then he comes in, and he was 16 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 50 years. So he reigned quite a long reign, 52 years. And then we've got another similar situation where we've got a gap where Rehoboam II's term comes to an end at the end of 41 years. No information is provided until Zechariah comes in, and in the 38th year of Uzziah or Azariah. So, but we're able to deal with these gaps again because we've got an anchor. We've got an anchor of in place, so we're able to deal with those. And then later on, there's another period here where we come to the end of Pekah's 20 years, and Hosea only comes in at the 12th year of Ahaz. But Ahaz is an anchor over those periods. So we've always got these bridges that deal with these gaps. So, and then just in case anybody's concerned that all that information probably could have made a mistake, then we have a means of confirming that we're still on track, and that's in this statement here in 2 Kings 18:10, where I've underlined it. You see, and at the end of 3 years they took it, and this is the confirmation that we say in the 6th year of Hezekiah, that is the 9th year of Hosea, king of Israel, Samaria was taken. So in the 6th year of Hezekiah and the 9th year of Hosea, we've got a clear link in one statement that we are 100% still intact, and our chronology is unaffected by any errors. Okay, there's one other one I want to share with you that was also that comes later. Okay, so now begins the period, the third part of the table, where we've only got kings of Judah. Fortunately, they are fairly straightforward, no space for error, very clear information. We've got the total lengths of their reigns. We know how to apply the total lengths. So we can simply plot them down, which is what was done here. Well, I suppose maybe we should just deal with this. We've got Hezekiah is in. We had a clear understanding that we were accurate up to his 6th year. We were 100% there. And then Manasseh comes in, and he was 12 years old, and he began to reign, and he reigned 50 years. So, okay, it just says Hezekiah slept. Okay, Manasseh basically comes in when Hezekiah dies. So we know that Hezekiah reigned 29 years. How do we know that? In 2 Kings, the last verse there, 2 Kings 18:2, he was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 29 years in Jerusalem. And he reigned 29 years, and he died, and his son came in. So this was his accession year for Manasseh, and we know that you don't account his accession year. His first year in his count starts immediately thereafter, and we're told that he reigned 50 and 5 years. So we got 50 and 5 years down there, and then what are we told? Yeah, and he slept with his fathers, and he was buried there, and his son came in 22 years old, and he reigned 2 years. So we use the rules. He doesn't get that count. His count starts immediately after his father's 55, and here we have 1, 2. And then the next person, and the servants of Ammon conspired against him and slew the king. So Ammon was slain, and Josiah was 8 years old and began to reign, and he reigned 31. And the people slew them and conspired against Ammon, and the people of the land made Josiah, his son, king in his stead. And Josiah was 8 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 31 years. Okay, so by the same rules, Josiah came in Ammon's second year, but the whole year is ascribed to Ammon, and Josiah's year 1 kicks in there. The year after, and he reigned 31 years. So now we go across the table, and there's his 31 years, and then we're told that Jehoahaz reigned 3 months, and he was taken out, and Jehoiakim came in, and he reigned 11 years. So Jehoahaz was very short, and then Jehoiakim came in, and so this year, which was part of year, is ascribed to the 31 of Josiah. Gets the full year as per the Judah rules. Jehoahaz doesn't get anything. He's just got the 3 months. He doesn't get ascribed the year. And Jehoiakim comes in, but his year 1, according to the Judah rules, starts the year thereafter. There's his year 1, and it's 11 years. And he goes down to 11. There's 11 years. And he was the sorry, I've jumped. It's not that 11. Sorry, Jehoiakim goes down to there. So Zedekiah comes in. There's 11 years. So Zedekiah, I didn't make a comment here. Pick up in 2 Kings 24:12, and Jehoiakim, the king of Judah, went out to the king of Babylon, and he and his mother and his servants and the princes and his officers, and the king of Babylon took him in the 8th year of his reign. So he was taken captivity in Nebuchadnezzar's 8th year. Now this is the first time that we have a reference, an anchor in a king that's not one of the biblical kings, one of the Israel-Judah kings. But we know that we know from Jeremiah that Nebuchadnezzar's first year is anchored. Nebuchadnezzar's first year is anchored to the 23rd year. I'm going to cover that just now. This 23rd year is and this was Jeremiah's bridge statement, to which links us to, tells us very clearly where Nebuchadnezzar's first year was. Okay, so we know exactly where his 8th year is, and we know that in his 8th year is when Jehoiakim was taken captive, and that's the beginning of Jehoiakim's captivity. And from there, there's a point later on, and I'm just mentioning it now because I'm not going to go through the detailed chronology after this period of kings. I'm going to jump over to the 70 years, because the chronology after the period after these kings is less important. It just really comes to a dead end at Nehemiah. But the most important thing is where the captivity began, and where the 70 years of the 70 years of captivity began, because that's the continuation link to the chronology that takes us through to the time of Jesus. So, but just for this, so that you're aware that Jehoiakim's captivity becomes the new anchor, a new reference point. But we know exactly when his captivity started, so it was at this point in time. So, so then it goes on to say that the king of Babylon made Mattaniah, his father's brother, king instead, and changed his name to Zedekiah. So this is where Zedekiah becomes king at that point when Jehoiakim goes into captivity. And Zedekiah was 21 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. So again, applying the same rules after the completion of the 11 years for Jehoiakim, and Zedekiah comes in from year 1, and his is also 11 years. Okay, and then that becomes the end. That's now that he ends up being the last king of Judah. And so we need a mechanism to confirm, are we still on track? And that's where Jeremiah came in, and Jeremiah made a statement in, I think I'm going to get to it now, and this is it here. It says in Jeremiah 25:1, it says, the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah concerning all the people of Judah in the 4th year of Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah, king of Judah, and that was the 1st year of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. So there we've got a clear link to the 4th year of Jehoiakim, we know, and the 1st year of Nebuchadnezzar. And then it goes on to say, the which Jeremiah the prophet spake unto all the people of Judah and to all the inhabitants of Jerusalem, saying, from the 13th year of Josiah, the son of Ammon, king of Judah, even unto this day, that is the 23rd year, the word of the Lord has come to me, and I have spoken unto you, rising early and speaking, but ye have not hearkened. So the chronological information there is that from the 13th year of Josiah, there's a count of 23 years to the 4th year of Jehoiakim. So we've got a bridge that we can bridge to confirm our counts. So when we go back to the Josiah's 13th year, it's in the previous table. There's his 13th year. There's Josiah's 13th year. I've got the count here. So there's year 1, Jeremiah's under Jeremiah's prophecy, year 1, and then we carry on here. There's 2 under Jeremiah's prophecy, and we count to 23, and we see that it is in line with Jehoiakim's 4th year, and we also know that it's Nebuchadnezzar's 1st year. Okay, so that statement is a very important statement to make sure that we've got this linkage, and that the counts are all correct. So all of these things we confirm that we're still 100% on target. And then of course the link to the Nebuchadnezzar's 1st year, and any comments thereafter with related to his term in office, we are clearly linked to the Judah king's link, because we know it was that happened in the 4th year of Jehoiakim. So just continuation. There's always these links between that we're able to follow to make sure that we're still on track with regards to the accuracy of the chronology. So I think that pretty much brings me to the end of the 3 sections of the kings of both Judah and Israel. And it's this point where we now jump over to the time of captivity, and we have to go back to the statement here. We know that the captivity started in Jehoiakim's 3rd year. Okay, and we know that. So let's just read here. We have here that so from Daniel 1, we see there that I'm just reading from the top that let's just try and make this a bit bigger. Okay, this is now how we know when the 70. So this is how we can determine exactly when the 70 years of captivity started. So in Daniel 1, in the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim. So we're in the 3rd year. The king of Judah, came Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, unto Jerusalem, and besieged it. And the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, in his hand, and with part of the vessels of the house of God, and he carried to the land of Shinar, to the house of his God, and he brought the vessels into the treasure house of his God. And the king spake unto Ashpenaz, the master of the eunuchs, that he should bring certain of the children of Israel, and of the king's seed, and of the princes. And he brought them in, and now we learn that now amongst these children was the children of Judah, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. And we know them more commonly now because they were given new names. Daniel was called Belshazzar, and Hananiah was called Shadrach, and Mishael was called Meshach, and Azariah was called Abednego. So we know them by their Babylonian names more commonly. So this is in the 3rd year of Jehoiakim that they were taken, that these were the first captives that were taken. And this therefore becomes the beginning of the 70 years of captivity in the 3rd year of Jehoiakim. So we've got a clear link, and we can then go down the 70 years, and we learn now we need, from here we need, of course, after this 70 years we pick up again on the chronology, because we have the time of Nehemiah and all that information that's available to us after the 70. But I think in terms of building the biblical chronology, we need to pick up on the next long bridge that's given to us, is the Daniel's 70 weeks. Now, I'm not going to get into tremendous detail on this Daniel's 70 weeks here. I'm just going to introduce it. I did another video on this before I started this series, which I'm going to refer to as for the detail. Okay, so for the detail, there's this video here called 6,000 Years of Biblical Chronology. In this video, I'll go into the detail of exactly how Daniel's 70 weeks, that's 70 weeks of years, that's 490 years, how those 490 years complete the chronology from the end of the 70th year of the captivity through to the birth, baptism, and crucifixion of Jesus, and that completes the chronology to that time period, and the detail is given there. So I'm just going to mention why we know that that Daniel's 70 weeks of years starts here in the 70th year of the captivity, because we read in 2 Chronicles verse 36 and 20, it says there, and them that had escaped from the sword carried he away to Babylon, and that's referring to Daniel and the group, and they were servants to him, the him being Nebuchadnezzar, and his sons, until the reign of the kingdom of Persia. Now, kingdom of Persia came in with Cyrus, when Cyrus became sole king. There was an earlier period where Cyrus and Darius the Mede reigned for 2 years, and then Cyrus became sole king after those 2 years. And we know that event, when Cyrus became the first year of Cyrus, was in the 70th year because of this statement. So they were carried away until the kingdom of Persia. So the kingdom of Persia came to be at the end of the 70th year, in the end of the 70 years. And then it goes on to say, this would be to fulfill the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah, until the land had enjoyed her Sabbath, for as long as she lay desolate, she kept Sabbath, to fulfill 70 years, to fulfill 70 years. So this was the 70 years that's now linked to the kingdom of Persia. But and this was what Anstey relied on, but there's one additional verse that I found that actually confirms it. It's a second confirmation for us on that, and it's in Daniel's own words that confirms the 70 is linked to Cyrus's first year. So if we go to Daniel chapter 1 and we go and read here, in the very last verse, verse 2, and Daniel continued even unto the first year of King Cyrus. So this, so that confirms that Daniel's was continued. This was all talking about his captivity and how he excelled, and the children of Israel excelled in there, and he continued unto the first year of King Cyrus. So his 70 years continued until the first year of Cyrus. So that's, we can actually add that to our collection of information. Okay. So that's how we know we can. Now we know exactly where to begin the 490 year count. And very briefly, if we take that 490 year count all the way down from there, building on the chronology. Okay, the interpretation is is that the Messiah comes at the 483rd year, so that would be when at Jesus' baptism, and he was baptized in the year 2980. And we can go backwards. He was 30 years then. We can go backwards and we find out that he had to have been born in 2 BC in order for him to be 30 for baptism, according to Luke. He was 30 at his baptism. We know that his baptism was at the 483rd year, and then in the midst of the remaining 7 years, he was crucified. In the midst of those years, he was crucified in the year 33 AD. So that's really just a conclusion of the chronology, of which the detail is you're going to find in that other video that I've titled 6,000 Years of Biblical Chronology. Right, so I think we're at that point now where we can wrap up the review of Reverend Martin Anstey's book, Romance of Bible Chronology. We've come through all of these sections here, and his final section, let's just go recap a little bit on it. We had the kings of Judah. We were able to add all those numbers that we came to, now that we built that table, we can bring out the numbers and we can add them into, we left off last at the 3,143. That was after King Solomon. Then we can add all the other kings, and we can go down and add them up all the way, and we get to the end of Zedekiah's end of his 11th year, and we're at 3,539. The kings of Israel runs parallel to that. That would also pick up on the previous number, the end after Solomon, 3143, and you can add all those numbers in, and you get to end of Hosea at 3406, the end of the 9th year of Hosea. But that runs in parallel. So 3046, another one was 3539. So King of Israel doesn't take us as far as the kings of Judah do. Kings of Judah take us a little bit further, but then we pick up in that on the I think we'll get to that on the 7-year captivity. So that's we've been able to build some more on the chronology. This was the time of the captivity. This is where we really covered all of this. 3rd year of Jehoiakim, and we learned from Daniel that in the 3rd year of reign of Jehoiakim they went into captivity, and we've covered all of that. It's just really just, and then we've got that whole synchronism in Jeremiah 25:1, which synchronizes the 4th year of Jehoiakim and the 1st year of Nebuchadnezzar, together with the 23rd year of his prophecies, of when he started prophesying. So he just covers that link. Then the 70 years, we pick up on that 3539. The 11th year of Zedekiah, we know it was in the 19th year of Nebuchadnezzar. That's in 2 Kings 25:8, which equals the 12th year of Jehoiakim's captivity. All of that is straight from our chronology that we built up to date, which is the 20th year of the 70 years of servitude. And then we add 25 years from the 12th to the 37th year of Jehoiakim's captivity, which equals the 45th year of the 70 years of servitude. And we pick that up in 2 Kings 25:27, and it's described in these volumes. And so we add those 25 years, and then we add another 25 years from the 45th year of the 70th year of the 70 years of servitude, Daniel 1:1 and Jeremiah 25:1 to 26. We see that there's another 25 years from that 45th year to the end of the 70th. So we add this, so we know that the end of the 70 years, the final 70 year was in 3589th year from Adam, and that was also the 1st year of sole kingship of Cyrus, from where we can then build on the 490 years. The prophecy of 490 years to the coming of Messiah. He does go into detail on the return. This is now after the captivity and the return to start rebuilding the temple, and I'm not, because it really just comes to an end and doesn't affect the total chronology, I'm not going to go into detail on that. Then the actual return, he does extend the chronology after the 3389. He does extend it with that. So the furthest we can ever go in terms of the chronology is 3637th year after Adam is the end of the biblical chronology. But it does come to a dead end there. We have to go back to the beginning of we have to go back to the 70-year captivity to be able to take it back forward, and that's what he does in his conclusion. And this is where he concludes that the year of the Messiah, according to the prophecy of Daniel, was Anhom 4038. However, in my video, the 3,000 years of biblical chronology, there was an error of 1 year in his reckoning here, and I don't believe that he counted where Rev M Anstey considered the crucifixion to have occurred on the 483rd year. I disagree with that. I believe that it makes more sense than that his baptism occurred in the 483rd year, leaving the remaining 7 years, the midst of which he was crucified. So I believe that this should read 4040. It's 4,040 years is when Jesus was born in 2 BC. So 2 BC would relate to 4,040 years from Adam. But that detail I'm not going to cover in this video. You'll have to go to that other video, the 6,000 years of biblical chronology, for the detail on that. So I think, just want to wrap up, I think that we have a great debt of gratitude to Reverend Martin Anstey for the work that he has done in putting this all together, the Romance of Bible Chronology. It was a huge task that he took on, and he set himself a goal, and the Lord blessed him and gave him the wisdom and the patience and the aptitude to be able to work through all of those difficulties in the text, and to work them out without doing any injury to the text. He's been able to complete the biblical chronology and leave it for us to pick up on. And this chronology is so important, more so than what most people care to give it credit, because without this chronology there is no way that we can correctly understand the prophecy, the Daniel's prophecy of 70 weeks, both in terms of the wars, where it was seen as 70 weeks of years, 490 years to Jesus' first coming, but also in terms of the second way of understanding the same prophecy for our time, the 70 weeks of years. You know, there was 70 years that were determined for Daniel's people. And I would want to encourage you to, if you want to understand the Daniel's prophecy as I believe it should, you need to go and watch these two videos. The 70 years of Israel's 70 years part 1 and Israel's 70 years part 2, together with, of course, this 6,000 years, because this is really just taking Daniel's prophecy and the chronology, building on the foundation of the chronology. We're now building on, and we're coming to understand our end times and when the second Messiah will be coming in. So I would encourage you, once you've got the foundation of the chronology underhand, then have a look at these and for an interpretation of Daniel, of the same prophecy for our time, together with a study that I did. You might want to, I will provide a link. Let me just go to show you, and I'll provide a link to this study, which I titled Daniel's 70 Weeks, the Was, the Is, and the Is to Come. It is a fairly detailed study that covers what I believe to be the correct way to interpret Daniel's 70 weeks, but in both meanings, both for his first and his second coming. So have a look at that. I haven't done a video on this except for the pieces. So I do refer to this information in those two videos, Israel's 70 years, part 1 and part 2. But this is obviously goes into a little bit more detail than what I can cover in those two videos. And I think it would be well worth having a look at and see if you come to the same conclusions that I have on this. And thank you, Lord, for this book that's been able to open up this truth of the complete biblical chronology, all the way from Adam to the birth of your Son. Thank you, Lord, for that. All credit goes to our Father and to our Lord Jesus for this information. I hope and trust that this series of videos will be of great value to you, and that you'll be able to pick up this point, be encouraged, pick up the book, read, go through the detail, and make it your personal revelation. Make it a personal revelation so that it can be a foundation for all your future studies. I would highly encourage you to either put it together yourself or pick up on this. It's available in a link. You can view this. If you don't have Excel, you can view it in Google Sheets. There's a tremendous amount of information, and it certainly makes, when you're reading the Bible and you want to understand where exactly and when exactly things occurred, because even in this table we'll pick up where the prophets, when they were given their visions, and it makes for great understanding when you can relate to it in terms of the timeline. So it's really, in my view, a valuable piece of information that we can use to aid our biblical studies. And so then with that, I'm going to sign out.